Stop that. Stop. Now it looks like everybody was waiting. Oh, got two. There we go. So we had two more, and there they are. Awesome. Looks like everybody made it. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It's having a decent week. I say decent because nobody can really have a good week in wintertime, if you ask me. Unless you're on a beach and your feet are in the sand, it's not a good week. All right, let me quickly look here. All right, we're in good shape. Everybody's here. I'm trying to make sure my dog is not chewing on cords. And if it gets to be too much, we'll have to put him out of the room. But right now I'm gonna let him have a run of the place and see how he does. Okay. I wanted to mention before we start, before I forget, oh shoot, who sent me? Somebody sent me a link to the camera. Who's got the Samsung camera? Somebody here has a Samsung.
I do.
Oh, there, Caleb. Yeah, Caleb. That's right. Yeah, I did check that. It looks like a decent enough camera. It looks like it'll take decent pictures. The only problem is that it does not appear to have full manual control, and it does also not shoot a RAW file. It only shoots JPEGs. It's not insurmountable. I think you could get by with it. There are some things that are going to be a little bit difficult. Like you'll have to really grasp the concept without being able to demonstrate it. In other words, like some of the assignments where we talk about, that are a little more specific about exposure and the exposure triangle and all of that, you're not going to be able to specifically do those things. I don't know that I would recommend, I mean, if it's possible to get a camera or even have access to one that that does that thing, then great. But I'm not going to say, go out and buy a different camera just for the class, although it would definitely help you to be able to have access to those controls. I did look on eBay specifically for a few models, and I have actually found a couple on there. If you start that, we're going to put you out. I did find a couple on there that would satisfy all of the criteria that we need for under $100, which is a little bit
hydrated.
what I was expecting to find. But if anybody is looking, all right, so dog's got to go. Hang on, give me 1 second here, guys. Come on. No, you got to go out. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Say goodbye.
Oh, he's cute though.
Yeah, he is. He's cuter than I am, but he's just a little too barky for this. Out you go, buddy. Yeah, he's cuter than I am, but he just can't be that much of a distraction. I thought maybe he would just play quietly on the floor, but I'm crazy to think that, I guess. So yeah, anyway, I didn't list specific models or anything like that, but I did a quick search and found a few on there that, like I said, probably under $100 or right around $100 would satisfy all of the requirements. Some of them for that price did not include a lens. It was the body only, but you could pick, I'm sure you could pick something up for right around that price range if anybody's interested. If you are interested, let me know, and I'll find those actual links and send those out in an announcement for anybody that's interested, because it is going to be tough to understand some of the concepts that we're getting into without access to a camera like that. So anyway, the first thing we do at the beginning of every class is go through the images that you sent in. This week, we wanted to see a couple of things that you had done and a couple of things that inspired you in some way. And we're going to look at those and have each one of you explain what it is about the inspirational ones that you like, and then tell us a little bit about the pictures that you did that you sent in, and what it is that you like about those. So let me switch over here to Bridge, and let me share that screen. Okay. So Carly, you get to start because we are at the top of the list alphabetically with the way the folders were named. So I'm guessing that these first two are the images that inspired you.
Yes.
Carnival ride and dance pictures. So tell me what it is that you like about this.
I just really like the bright lights. I like the exposure, and I want to be able to do that. So that's why it inspired me. And the dance picture, it's more of like the movement of how the fabric is. I really like capturing it moving in time. So that's what I really liked about it.
Sorry, guys, I just realized I had my headset on and I wasn't connected. Now I am. So yeah, fabric and movement, I'll tell you, that's something that is big with me too. That's probably the biggest reason I do a lot of the underwater work, because I love the way fabrics move underwater, and because you can't predict it. It's like being in the wind. You're going to get a different result every single time. And it's fun to kind of research those things and to find fabrics and be like, well, geez, I wonder what this would be like underwater. And there's some that you think would be absolutely fantastic and they suck big time. And others that you really don't hold out a lot of hope for, and they just do amazing with the way they flow. But yeah, whether it's something like this in a breeze or with movement from a model, I agree. I love the motion in that. And in this one, same thing. So basically the theme between both of these images is motion.
Yeah.
And
this kind of like the theme with all of them is like the movement, because I like capturing image in time.
And so this, for example, actually both of the images that you sent for inspiration are a little easier to create than you might think. This one really relies on, now again, this is one that you do have to have a manually controlled camera so that you can set the shutter speed very slow. And you also need a tripod, because if you look at all of the non-moving items in this image, you'll see that they're very sharp and stationary. And then, it's hard to say because you don't know exactly how fast this thing is spinning, but we're probably looking at somewhere around 1 or 2 second exposure to get that to look like that. But it's really cool when you work with moving objects, and especially moving objects with lights on them at night or even earlier, like at dusk is a good time for this. They do pretty well. So those are your two inspirations. And then this one, obviously continuing that theme with movement. And was this just a rock in the water kind of thing, basically?
Yeah, it was both the pictures I took were at Ogilvy, and so me and my dad were just messing around with different ideas, and so I was like, can we try like a water ripple thing? And it like took like 3 times before we got like a good enough ripple. Yeah,
I know. I had to shoot a magazine cover for actually for Lindsley's alumni magazine this year, and that's what they wanted to do. I think the theme or the title of the issue is Impact. And so they had a student on the edge of of this fountain, the other picture that you sent, sitting on the edge of that fountain. And the idea was that they were going to flip a coin, and the coin would hit the water and splash and send ripples out. In practice, that's almost an impossible shot to get. So what we ended up doing, and I knew this going in, was we shot the student in the position of, flipping like this. Then I took a coin and actually manipulated it and, had in various sides of it that make it look like it was flipping, and just repeated that in an arc. And then for the splash in the water, we had somebody, the camera was set on a tripod in the same position that the shot for the student. Somebody dropped a rock exactly where I wanted it, and we got the splash and the ripple from that. So it's actually 3 different images that had to be combined in order to get that. So yeah, I understand completely about how hard it is to get exactly what you're looking for when you do something like that. So this one, just so you know, and I'll tell everybody this at the beginning. So when we go through and critique images, even early on like this, I'm always going to be looking for things that I can suggest to you that would improve your images. Now, please don't anybody take that negatively to say, I'm ripping the images or whatever. But if I don't do that, I'm not doing you any good. I'm not helping you out at all. And so, because by the end of the semester, I want your thought process to be that when you put the camera to your eye to take a picture, you're going to see the things because you'll hear me talking in your head. You'll see the things that I would have pointed out to you and go, oh, I need to change this, need to move that or whatever. Because it is a thought process. There are things that are incredibly difficult for you to see when you take a picture, because we are seeing in 3 dimensions. Okay. You see everything that's in front of you, but everybody tends to concentrate on the subject, and we don't really see background and peripheral items. And we end up with a 2-dimensional image that is easier to see those things. Maybe not so much for you because you have an emotional attachment to every image that you take, but to somebody else, they can pick out those things. So let me ask the group, anybody in the group, if you look at this photograph, is there anything or things that you see that you think might have been done or could have been done to improve the image? And don't be ruthless, but be honest. And then I'll tell what I see if anybody doesn't hit those things. Anybody?
I have a comment.
Okay, sure.
The way that the angle is on the fountain, I don't know if she meant to do this, I don't know, but it's crooked in my eyes. It depends on what I was trying to do, because there's so many different lines. Right. The line.
So that's one of about 3 things, 4 actually, now that I think about it, that I would have suggested. And the reason that becomes a problem, it's a problem with anything. Let me back up. It's a problem in a lot of respects, but when you have a container of water and think about like a horizon line at the ocean, if that horizon line isn't straight, if it's a lot crooked, then you say, well, they did that intentionally for some reason. If it's a little crooked, it kind of looks like the ocean is going to run out of the picture, like the whole, it's going to empty out. And the same thing happens here because of the fact that these basins are full of water. It kind of lends, and you can do that sometimes intentionally for effect to create tension that way. But when it's off by just a little bit, then generally it looks like a mistake. And it's not so much the fountain that is the problem here. You can see that. You can see that it's off. But look at the vertical line behind that, the post that the flowers are hung on. Now that's something that our mind recognizes is a vertical and should be vertical. And when it's off by just a little bit, again, if it's off by a lot, then we can say, oh, there was a reason for that. But if it's off by just a little bit, it feels wrong. That's what happens inside of our brains. We're like, oh, there's something a little, we just want to grab it and kind of pull it back a little bit to get rid of that. Anybody see anything else? Okay, so I'll make the first thing. Well, the alignment might have been the first thing. The second thing probably that stood out to me are the cars in the background, because I want to look at this. I want to look at this fountain. I want to kind of enjoy what's going on here, but I keep getting pulled back to those vehicles that, all different shapes and sizes and colors and things like that. And if I can envision this without those, I enjoy it a whole lot more than seeing that back. Even though they're a little bit out of focus, we still recognize what they are because they're sharp enough for that. And so honestly, the easiest way, this fountain has 360 degrees around it. So the easiest way is just to move your feet and to keep looking as you walk around that fountain until you find a spot where you don't have distractions like that in the background. Now, there could be flowers and trees and things like that. Those aren't really things that would distract, but the fact that and the one vehicle really needs washed. That's the other thing that, I keep looking at that. Like I want to go up there and just hose that off. So the goal is always in any photograph we take to minimize distractions. You want the viewer to see what it is that you see in the scene. And if anything keeps them from getting to that, then it's a distraction and it should be eliminated. So that's the other thing. The final thing is really just, it's sort of, it's very subjective because it's not right or wrong. But when I look at the water droplets, we are somewhere, and I don't know if I can get the metadata on this. Yeah, so the ISO on this, I can always see, I can generally see exactly what the camera settings were. ISO was 1400. The shutter or the aperture was f/16, and the shutter speed was a 320th of a second. So it's fast enough to kind of stop motion, but it's not fast enough to stop all the motion. If you look at the little spray that is off to the left in that shadow area in the bottom, you can see that there is motion in the water. So again, it's sort of that in between. Do we want to go fast enough to really freeze all of that and make it look sharp and frozen, or do we want to slow it down even more and create a little more of a motion effect in it? So this one's kind of an in between, and I probably would have gone one way or the other. Now, in reality, you probably, I don't know if it tells me what camera this was. Let's see. It's a Nikon. That's all I know.
Yeah, it was a similar Nikon. It was like a older model.
Okay. You were probably shooting it in auto mode or something like that and just took the picture and didn't really, there was no consideration given to those things because at the time you probably had no clue what any of them meant. But what you could have done now that or what you will be able to do at the end of the semester is look at this and go, you know what, I want the water to slow down. I want it to blur a little bit more. So I'm going to go in and set it so that the shutter speed is a much slower shutter speed. Or if I don't have a tripod and I don't think I can hand hold it, then I'll go the other way and really, bump that up to like 1,000th of a second or something so that it really, really freezes that. The other thing is at f/16, even though you were really close to the fountain, which is the reason that the cars are as out of focus as they are at f/16, if you had pulled the aperture down to even f/8, f/5.6, or whatever you have available in that range, that would have blurred those cars out a whole lot more, and they may not have been as much of a distraction. So those three things, the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed, not only control exposure, but each one of them has a visual effect on the image that once you guys understand how they all work, you're going to be able to go into a scene like this and know instinctively, well, I want to blur, I can't move for whatever reason, so I got to blur those cars out. And in the process, I'm going to really bump the shutter speed up so the water, gets frozen. So that's a long dissertation on a single photo. But early on, especially in the semester, I want to really hit on those things, because if I do it over and over and over again with you guys, you will eventually start to think the same way. But other than that, I love the fact that you had a theme all the way
It
through.
wasn't intentional. It just happened.
Well, all four of the images have it. So even if you don't think it was intentional consciously, it may have been intentional subconsciously. And that says a little something about what it is that you like seeing in photographs. So I appreciated that. So well done on that. Typically, well, I always pick an image, at least one image from each person's submissions, and I drag that into a folder that we're going to look at together. I probably would go with the ripples on, is that the lake down, the one on the left?
Yeah.
I would probably
Yeah.
use that one over the other one, now that we have planted enough seeds in everyone's head about the things that are wrong with it. But unless you disagree, I will use this one, and we'll use that for comparison at the end.
That's fine.
All right. So next up is Brooke. And we have the inspiration folders, which I really like both of these. Let's look at both of them first. They're probably small enough. Yeah, they're small, so we can look at them side by side. And I didn't look to see, let me go real quickly here. No, you weren't the one, but you like, it says on here 3D art, and where's the other part of that? And drawing. I thought you might have been the one that said you liked Urban Decay.
Yeah, it was me.
It was you? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, both of these really fit that theme for sure. In different ways. I like the, tell me what it is that you like about these two before I comment.
So the one on the left, I saw a long time ago, and it's just kind of been living in my head ever since then. And I don't know, I like the water. I'm really attracted to like water inside of the decaying buildings. And the other one I just thought was pretty.
Yeah, it is. It's a monochromatic. So it has some color harmony to it. The whole thing has this green tint, this green cast to it. It as well has a few minor things. I would straighten, and I know this isn't your image, but whoever took it, I would tell them, oh, give me 1 degree back to the right. It's just a little bit off, and then I'd like it a whole lot more. But I definitely see the draw there. The one on the left, for me, it's all about lighting. The number one most impactful thing in a photograph is almost always lighting. And in this case, that strong backlight coming from those upper windows, you can actually see, the spray of light coming down and backlighting all of that foliage and the water and the rocks and all of that. And of course, we have two things that don't really kind of belong together. So there's some juxtaposition going on there. But the lighting for me is what really elevates this. And then the other thing is it, again, even though it's a color image, is very monochromatic. So it has kind of a feel to it that, that just works. So let's see if that relates to anything. No, we have a dog. So not an Urban Decay picture.
No, I don't really have anywhere to take those. So.
Well, I can give you some ideas. I don't know how ambulatory you guys are, like as far as how much you can get around town, but if you want to find a lot of things, a lot of variety of looks, go down to the waterfront in downtown Wheeling, and from the Civic Center up to the old amphitheater at the top. Not so much down at the water's edge. There's a little bit of it down there, but mostly up on the street level. There's a whole bunch of really cool old brick walls and graffiti and ironwork and rusty chain link and stuff like that. That's just really cool. I do a lot of portrait work down there because of the amount of variety. But anyway, this one's interesting. So I'm going to tell you, I get a lot of students that take pictures of pets. but almost all of them are very basic and very much the same. This one is a little different. And I really love the things that are different about it. Now, this is a case where the fence isn't straight, but it's not straight by a lot. And that tells me that, you know, it was either intentional or it was a byproduct of trying. First of all, I know how hard it is to hit a moving target, and most of these things do not sit still. So you did a great job of actually getting a sharp image of this little dog who probably was, you know, bouncing around pretty good out there. But I love the fact that that fence is on a diagonal. Like it really creates some drama and some dynamics in the image. The two most static and boring things in most images are verticals and horizontals. The two most interesting things are diagonals and triangles. So to put anything on a diagonal or to try to create triangles with things is usually very dynamic. The lighting on the dog is great. That little highlight on his eye that really lights his eye up, that's really cool. And the fact that we don't have a gray featureless sky. We have a sky that has some detail and some color and clouds. So the exposure is handled really, really well here. Again, there's some things in editing that could have really cleaned this up even more, but we'll get to that, you know, down the line. For what this was, I only see one little thing, and this is not something that you probably would be able to do at this point, but if it were my image and I took this, I would go in and just take this little post out that's behind the dog's neck. Because again, when I squint at the image, and that's a trick that you can use, if you want to find distractions in an image, squint at it. Or flip it upside down, because then it kind of forces our brain to see things in a little bit of a different way. And even though I really do go to the dog and I see the dog and I enjoy the dog, I still see that little post coming up back there because it's sort of like it's growing out of his back a little bit. But that's a very minor thing. Overall, this is a pretty good image, and it's a really good pet image. It's one of the better ones that I've seen. Okay, so your second one, you're gonna have to tell me what I'm looking at here.
Okay, so it's jellyfish at an aquarium, but I liked how it kind of looked like a galaxy.
Yeah, so I thought exactly both of those things. I did think they were jellyfish, but at first glance, it does look like galaxies. And that is a pretty cool thing, especially, so I'm not sure, like all of the little things that look like stars are probably like just things suspended in the water, maybe, I'm guessing. I don't know. But that's one of the reasons that it tends to look like that. Look, it reminds me of the Hubble Deep Field image. I don't know if any of you have seen that or not. It was created, oh wow, probably 10 years ago. They took the Hubble telescope and they pointed it at a region of sky that they thought was completely devoid of stars. And they took a series of exposures over 11 days. It was like a 1 million second exposure by the time it was done, because that's how they photograph. It's not one long continuous exposure. It's generally a bunch of shorter exposures that are layered together into a single image. And when they looked at it, when they compiled all the data and put it together, it was an image that looked a little bit like this, except it was actually even more populated. And they were galaxies. There were over 10,000 of them in this photograph in an area that they thought there were no stars at all. They said the angle of view was like looking through a 7-foot soda straw. That's how small an area that they were pinpointing. And they said the light was so dim that it was like trying to photograph a firefly hovering above the moon. So it was a very difficult thing, but it was really cool. And then they extrapolated this video that was like flying through it as the galaxies whizzed past you, because they could tell which ones were closer and which ones were further. And the furthest ones away were over 13 billion light years away, which means that what we were seeing was actually galaxies that the very first galaxies that formed after the Big Bang. So it was really cool. But this is what it reminds me of. As far as I would say, and this is a difficult subject to photograph, it's maybe not quite as sharp, but I think probably there's a couple things going on here. I think probably there's some motion in the jellyfish, motion in the camera. They're obviously behind some kind of glass, which you know, creates some problems as well. But overall, I'm not going to knock it too much. It's kind of an interesting, yeah, it's a 15th of a second exposure. So yeah, not only motion in the subject, but probably a little bit in the camera as well. But pretty good for what you had to work with, you know, for not having equipment that would nail this a little bit better. Overall, really good. I personally, that's my shot. I like your dog picture. I think that's probably a little more impactful. This one's cool. It's got a great story behind it, but this one has more impact for it. So we'll put that one in. And thank you, Brooke. We're going to go on to Liz. You go by Liz, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let me see if I can guess here. I'm going to say this is an inspirational one.
Yes. That one and the bottom one.
That one in the bottom. So let's look at these first. Do you know where this is?
No, I do not.
Yeah, I don't either. It almost reminds me of Ireland or Scotland or, you know, someplace like that along the coast.
Yeah, that's what my mom had said. She said it reminds her of like Iceland.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of Iceland that has a look like this as well. And even, I mean, there's a lot of places around the world. New Zealand even has places that look a little bit like this. But for some reason, it looks cold to me. So
Most definitely.
It might be the only cold place that I would consider going. So tell me what you like about this.
I like how in the picture it looks like there's motion to the water, and the detail of the clouds with the sun kind of beaming out of it and the light exposure is definitely the best part for me. I like how all of the geography for the hills all look different but same in the same sense. I just like the way that the hills look like they were created, I guess.
No, I agree. I like everything about this. The reason I'm smiling is that I have a doggy doorbell and my dog just activated it. So I need to just for a minute step away and make sure he's not about to do something out there. And okay. I'll be right back. Sorry. So clearly I'm going to need to go back in a minute to let him in. But the last thing I want to do after finally getting him used to going to the door and hitting that bell is not responding when he does. But I think at this point he's more, because I put him out right before class. I think he's more interested in playing with little pine cones and things that he's found in the yard. So yeah, again, backlighting on this image. A very well done exposure for backlighting, because backlighting is difficult to control exposure and contrast. But this one's done really well. I also love the depth in it. Like, you know, we have a foreground, we have a middle ground, and we have a background, and all of them are interesting in one way or the other. So that's a pretty cool one. So this one, this is a little interesting because this is a different take on a sunset.
Yeah.
What do you see here that you, I mean, I know sunsets are a big thing for most people anyway, but is there anything specific about this one?
I like how the background in front of the sun, pretty much the train kind of thing is all blacked out, and the sky is not gray, but gives it like an orangish kind of tint.
Yeah, the foreground, I think the foreground elements for me are the most unusual, because that's, you know, usually you see a sunset like this, it's going to be over water or you know, obviously you need access to the horizon to get that. It's also right before it starts to dip, so you get some really strong color. This is a difficult exposure because to get those elements, the silhouetted foreground, the good color in the background, the exposure's got to be just right. And I doubt that there's any. No, there's images like this have had metadata stripped out of them, so we can't see exactly how this was done. The other thing that's a little unique about it is the dead center composition. It's center as far as left to right, but pay attention. Notice the fact that it is not centered above and beyond, or
Right.
above and below,
Mhm.
because typically we don't want a horizon line to cut right through the center of the photograph. It's a little more dynamic if it's a little higher or lower. So this one, they've dropped a little bit lower to make it feel like there's more weight down there. And also, if they moved it up a little bit, that whole foreground, which is black, there would be a lot more of that. So that a half of the photograph will be full of no detail. So there's a couple of reasons for doing that, but yeah, they did a nice job on that one. So let's look at yours. So we have, well, you tell me, what do we have and why do you like it?
Those are flowers. I can't specifically remember the name. But I took this photo at Lake Erie on the boardwalk, and that actually happened to be the only one that was right off to the side of the boardwalk. So I thought it was just pretty cool how the moss on the rock was there, and it pretty much looks like the rocks have been there for a good while. So with the ferns just being there and the water in the backdrop, I feel like there's a little bit of motion in the water, kind of making a ripple effect, I guess.
I'm going to open this and I'm going to go into the Photoshop image of this and look at something. All right. Whoops, hang on. Lost it. Let's get back to that. Are you guys seeing this in Photoshop now? Okay. So the thing that I see about it I really like the image overall, but if I can look at something, and I don't know if this will improve it or not, but I think it might. I'm having trouble getting my keyboard to work here. When I look at this image, that out of focus rock in the foreground is a little bit massive. It takes up so much space that I have a little bit more trouble getting to the flowers in the back. And if I look at the background, the flowers, the water, and the rocks on the right, I have a lot more color harmony than I do with this one on the left. Now, I don't know that this will work, but I'm going to pull this in and take a look. Sometimes if we eliminate a few things, and there's a couple of ways we could go, we could center that composition, we could pull it off that way, or we can center it. No, I think I'd keep all of those rocks on the right and probably put those more in the center. And then actually, let me go back and look at this again, because I might even pull down the top just a little bit. All right, so let's look at the before and after. To me, it is a slight improvement, but it does improve, and it helps me to get to those flowers and the rocks that I want to see back there a little bit better. Right. Now, the one thing that everybody has a rough time initially getting over is cropping with the camera's format. In other words, whatever comes out of the camera, that's sort of what we have. Okay. But what I want you guys to really realize is that you can crop in any dimension, any aspect ratio you want. You're not stuck with what comes out of the camera. So if something is better to shave a little of this off or a little of that off, by all means, go ahead and do it. If you can improve it. I would say probably at the very least 50% of all pictures can benefit by a little bit of cropping. So let me get out of this. We'll get back into Bridge. But yeah, overall, I like the image. I think just a little bit less on the left-hand side, and you've got a much stronger picture.
Okay.
Now, this one is interesting again, because now we know for sure that one of two things happened. Either you absolutely intentionally tilted the camera to that extreme to get that angle, or you fell down and your camera took this automatically. And I'm guessing it's the first one rather than the second one.
Yes.
So again, now we have diagonals. We actually have triangles as well. The diagonals create triangles. The sky in the upper right-hand corner is a triangle. The concrete down below the line in the road is a triangle. So we've got a couple of things working here. Plus we've got that strong backlighting again, you know, similar to what you had in this image. But you've taken a very normal, mundane subject and transformed it into something that has a little more impact, or actually a lot more impact to it. And it does make the viewer wonder, what's the point here? Why did she do that? What is the, you know, that's kind of the thing that when we look at something, and photography is art. And when we look at a piece of art, we try to figure out what was the meaning, what was the reason. And I like the fact that there's some mystery here, that nobody really probably would know what's in your head. So they have to kind of make it up on their own, and that's kind of fun. I have a friend who's a conceptual artist in Chicago. He's a photographer, but in Chicago, but he creates some incredibly unusual stuff. And he doesn't go in with an idea in mind. He just sort of takes some images and starts playing with them, and eventually comes up with something. And he said when he has a gallery exhibit, he loves walking around and listening to people, and they'll say, you know, wow, what does this piece mean? This is what I think it means. And they'll tell him, you know, what it is that they think. And he says, I'll look down, and if I see a checkbook in their hand, I'll say, you know what, you nailed it. That's exactly what I was going for. And the truth is, he had no clue. But I like this. Was there any reason or thought other than the fact that you looked at it and went, wow, this looks cool?
Well, this was actually an accidental picture. I was trying to take a picture of just the sky with how the lighting is coming down. It was pretty much like that over top of all the hills and the trees that we have. But then I couldn't get that specific kind of picture that I wanted. So I figured that if I just took a kind of focused on the road instead, with how the paint is going inside of the crack of the road, then maybe it would make a better kind of backdrop with the lighting for the sun. So whenever I did that, it just kind of looked a lot better. And I actually held up traffic taking this picture.
Good. So one of the comments that I always make to this class in particular is that when you go out to photograph, especially when you're doing an assignment, if people look at you like you're a little crazy, let them. Act like you belong there, because you do. You know, a lot of people get very timid about stuff like that. And if you go out, and I've done this my whole life, I've stopped traffic on many occasions. I've actually had the police help me to do it from time to time. But when people see that, they're like, oh, wow, what's going on there? Like, you know, they must be doing something important. Because most people, you can tell if they're like, you know, oh, should I be doing this? No, go for it. You know,
Right.
that has a completely different vibe to it. And it makes people pay attention.
Right. Well, I was going to tell them to go around me, but I was taking up both sides of the road, so I thought that was impossible.
Well, anyway, I love some of the choices you made here. A couple of things that really work in this image are, again, we have a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. Most people, like you probably initially set out to do, would be to photograph the background. But by incorporating that foreground, wow, how much more depth there is. And again, because of the lighting coming and backlighting across that rough surface, we get all of that texture in the road. And then even a little color harmony, because the yellow stripe kind of mirrors the colors in the sunset in the back. So yeah, great job on this one. This is probably, I mean, there's some good images that you guys submitted this week, but this is probably one of my favorites. So as much as I like this one is going in the best of show folder.
Okay.
All right. So Hannah, we're going to get to you next, but I do want to go make sure that no one has stolen my dog. I guess that's a big thing lately. So I'll be right back. Well, he's now dragging toys into the room, so we'll see how long this lasts. Did I tell you what his name was? I think his name's kind of cute. So my last dog was also a very small dog, a little bit bigger than this, and I named her Pixel. And so this one, I wanted to continue that tradition, and he's so compact that I named him JPEG. So, and he has found his voice. Hey, no, go. Maybe if I just play with him off to the side here, he'll be fine. Okay, so Hannah, your inspiration, I think, is the first and third one. So let's, now it's a little bit, let me see if I can increase the size of this. I can't do it in Bridge, but let me open in Photoshop and I'll share that instead. Actually, see if I can share both of those. Shift. All right. Are you seeing that in Photoshop with the grid over it? Not seeing it? All right. It must be only sharing Bridge. So let's do there. Got it now? Okay. So it's a little bit pixelated because I've enlarged it. You know, it's a small image and I've enlarged it, but so it looks like we've sort of got an Alice in Wonderland thing going on here. And who did I say this was? Hannah? This is,
yeah, it's mine.
oh, there you are. Okay. So tell me what it is about this image that really says something to you.
So this is a photographer that I've been like following for a while, and she does a lot with like Photoshop and incorporates it into her images that she takes, so they turn out really neat. But I like it because it's different, and I like how some of the images are kind of like blended within the background.
Yeah, so this is actually, once you learn a few things in Photoshop, this is not a difficult thing to achieve, but they don't have to be difficult to be impactful. You know, it's the concept and the design that will carry something through. So I like what she's done here. Obviously, again, lighting plays a big part in it. We can see this light coming down from the top, and clearly the model is lit from that direction. The fact that her hair is kind of flowing, you know, gives it some motion, like she's falling or whatever. And then each individual element can be controlled and placed into the background. So it's a simple design, but it's an effective concept. And again, color harmony plays a big part in it. We've got some warm and cool colors here, but not a lot. You know, the blue is really the dominant thing in the image. I would love to know if there's a title to this image, because a lot of times that gives us even a little more insight into what they were thinking when they created something. But yeah, this is a pretty interesting image as far as compositing goes. Let me see if I can just, because the other image, well, no, this one's bigger. So let me go back to Bridge. It's a much bigger image. There we go. So I'm guessing this is your other, yeah, it says photography inspiration. So yeah, this one's unique again, very colorful. So is it well, there's a couple of things here that might've drawn your attention. Tell me what it was.
The thing that drew my attention to it the most was the color in the background, and how she's kind of like in the middle of it, but your eyes direct more towards her when you're looking at it than the whole background.
Yeah, it's interesting that, first of all, it looks like it could be the same girl in the other picture. The hair is very similar, but what's interesting, so, you know, this is bubble gum, like all over this thing. Like I remember going to, I think it was Kings Island, that has gum trees, which are trees along, you know, when you stand in line for hours and hours and hours and people are bored, and they take the gum that they're chewing and they stick it on the trunks of trees. There's some trees there that are so covered with gum that you don't even see the tree. And so somebody has sort of done or started the same thing here and covered this wall with chewing gum in some pretty unique ways. And she's blowing a bubble of chewing gum. So that's what sort of makes it fit. But then you've got this bizarre pose in there because it's such a tight area. So again, we were like, why, why did they do that? Why didn't she just sit in there? What is it about, what was it that made somebody want to do this? So there's all these unanswered questions, and that can be interesting. There's some movement to it as well. It looks like her torso, her upper body's got a bit of an undefined edge. So there's been some, she's moving a little bit. So there's a bunch of stuff here that's kind of interesting. But overall, I think the impact comes from the color, and then the fact that she's in this area that's sort of devoid of light and devoid of color. So it sets her apart. If she was just in front of a solid wall like this, it wouldn't have nearly the same impact. So that's a pretty interesting image for sure. So then for your images, this is interesting. Tell me what you like here.
Okay, so this was taken when I was on vacation about 2 years ago. But what I liked is basically the water, and it's like a different color than the sky, but the sky is lighter than the ocean. So I thought it was neat. So I snapped a picture of it.
So what we've got happening here, when you shoot a dock like this, it creates a compositional element, a couple of them actually, and it would have been even more pronounced if those posts had come all the way back, but it creates leading lines that draw your eye from the edge of the photograph into the photograph. And even though the lines aren't as strong in this image, they lead us right to those two seagulls that are right on the edge of the dock. So it's compositionally, it works really well. And the fact that even though they're not as pronounced, they don't stand out a whole lot, they stand out enough. And the dock just leads us right down to it. And it's funny, when I saw this, it reminded me of something. And let me, I'm going to switch over here and show you something interesting, I think. So this is my studio's Facebook page, and my cover shot for my Facebook page is this. So it's a very similar idea. The only difference is the angle of view is a little bit lower, so it accentuates that those lines, and it creates that vanishing point out at the end of the dock. Your dock wasn't as long, and you didn't have the posts going all the way back, so you were a little bit of a disadvantage. But the next time you get to a place like that, in fact, let me go back to Bridge to see your image. Yeah, it would have been great if there had been like 2 or 3 more posts there, and you could have really gotten down in and done kind of a similar thing. But for what you had to work with, pretty good job. There's symmetry here. There's some balance to this. Again, we have an interesting sky rather than a gray featureless look, which is what we get a lot of times, especially anywhere around here this time of year. Oh, be quiet. My God, this dog's gonna drive me crazy. Yeah, and there's really nothing I can look at and say, well, if you had done this, they would have made it better, or that. It's not, there's really nothing wrong here. I like the fact that your angle is actually high enough that the tops of those posts don't intersect with the horizon line or come above the horizon line. They're isolated in the water back there, so it makes them stand out a little bit more. So I kind of like all of that. And then you've got sunset. Sunset, I'm assuming, as opposed to sunrise.
Yeah.
And the only reason I guess that is that nobody wants to get up early enough in the morning to do sunrise. Everybody likes to sleep too much. So yeah, again, what we talked about in one of the other images, when you get the exposure right on the background, on the sunset itself, then the foreground turns into a silhouette. But again, you've kept the horizon line low, so that we can enjoy what's up above there. A couple little Photoshop things that would have made this really pump up a little bit more in saturation would have helped it. But again, those aren't things that we've even discussed yet. So for what you had in front of you and for what you had to work with, pretty good job. Again, I think if it were me, I would experiment with maybe slimlining this a little bit, taking maybe a third off of the top, even though that's the only area of the sky that has that blue in it. And I kind of like the bubblegum effect of the blue against the warmer colors, but I'd play with it at least. I'd go in, you know, if you just hold even your hand up and crop off that top part. Sometimes a very slimline image on something like this is more effective, but you know, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but they're both pretty good. So this is kind of half and half. Which of these two do you like better?
I like the first one better.
The sunset?
No,
the dock. Okay.
The dock.
No problem. That's the one that goes in. All right. So yeah, I like your inspirational images too. There's not really well, there is kind of a theme, I guess, but probably unintentional. So good job there. All right, Jaden is up next. And I know that is an inspirational, I'm guessing, because if you took this, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to just take the rest of the semester off and you can teach. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is a really interesting type of an image. Obviously, again, lighting plays a huge part in it, but what is it that you really like about it?
I like the two zebras fighting. I think it's pretty cool because I love the wildlife. And the lighting is pretty good, like how there's some light on the back of the one and then on the butt of the other.
So lighting, there's one thing about the lighting here that is probably the most impactful thing. And it's a lot of times it's direction, and there is some direction to this light. We can see that's coming from the right side, you know, from camera right. But the thing that I think really is more impactful about the lighting is time of day. When they shoot, or when anybody shoots very early in the day or very late in the day, you get that warmer look, that warmer sunlight, and it creates a whole different look. Now we also have, again, a very monochromatic image because the grassland that they're in is, you know, pretty dead and parched, and everything has this warm tone to it. I'm not sure that they could be fighting, but the one on the left looks a bit smaller. I'm wondering if it's a calf, maybe, that, you know, maybe it's more play than fight. I don't know. It's hard to say, but it doesn't matter either way. Look what's happened with the composition. They've created a triangle. It starts from, you know, the rear end of this one up to the heads, and then down on the other side. So those angles and triangles have a lot to do with it. That's a pretty cool capture. I'm going to guess, is this your other one that was inspirational, or did you take this?
That was mine.
That's yours? Well, that's a pretty good shot.
The cow is my inspirational.
Okay, well, let's look at that one first. What is it about this cow?
I think she's cute. And my friend took that one, and I think that's pretty good.
So what I like about it is the shallow depth of field. You know, it forces you to look at the head and the face and the eyes and all of that because the body is out of focus a little bit. And I also kind of like the straw that's on the face there that just kind of lets you know that, hey, I was asleep and somebody woke me up. And so again, you kind of build these stories from the things that we see, whether they're true or not. You still build the story in your mind. So that's interesting. So this one's yours. It's a pretty good macro shot. You're going to get put away. You know that. All right. 30 seconds, guys. I'm putting the dog out again. You cannot be trusted. Come on, let's go. At least now, if he barks, it won't be shrill in my ear, and hopefully that'll be the end of it. He does go eventually and just play by himself. So a couple things I like. One thing I might suggest a change. I love the shallow depth of field again, which is a natural occurrence in a more macro shot. how big would you say this this insect is?
I can't remember. Maybe like, try to compare it to something. Like a chapstick.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so not like microscopic, but still
Yeah.
small enough to create that shallow depth of field where that background really goes out of focus. The foreground, again, when we look at, so I like that. I like the diagonal that it's created. It almost looks like, and I don't know whether it's, I think it's going down rather than up, but almost looks like it's sliding down a slope or something. The tree trunk that it's on, I think maybe has a little more foreground than is necessary. I don't know. Let's open this one and take a look. Let me get it up there. Close that one. And let me share my Photoshop screen with you guys. And by the way, I know that, so this first assignment week, this critique part always is the longest one that we ever do, because there's just so much to say and so much to look at. Typically I try to hold this to about an hour and then we're out, but we're clearly going to go beyond that, but that's intentional. So are you guys seeing this in Photoshop now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I want to try to crop this a little bit and see, and I think maybe my keyboard batteries have died because it's just not responding to that. Let me see. I do kind of like, I'm wondering if I would like this as a square. And putting that thing right in the center, like that's an unusual composition. But let me see if I like that. Do I like it better? Maybe. Let me try one thing a little differently.
I kind of like the green leaf, like in the top left.
The
I don't know
top
why,
left?
but yeah, I kind of like that for some reason. Just adds to the background a little bit.
So then let's try this. If we crop it into another compositional element called the rule of thirds, actually, let me undo this and I'll show that to you. Photoshop has an interesting little cropping device built in now that when you use the crop tool, it automatically, you see the grid that's on there, it divides your image into thirds, both horizontally and vertically. And where these lines intersect, these four they're called impact points. If your subject is on one of those impact points, it generally is going to be more dynamic. So as I crop this in, I can put that crosshair right on that insect and know that he's in that impact point and crop it. And I do, if I want to keep that leaf in the upper left, I do kind of like that. Now, because he is moving downward, I think that's his head. It creates a little tension because he's near the edge of the frame. You know, he's like about to either walk out or hit right up against the edge of the frame. He's on an impact point, creates a little bit of tension, takes a little bit of the foreground and the background out of it that was maybe a bit of a distraction. It's, again, not a huge thing, but I think it does make him stand out just a little bit more than the original. But overall, love the color harmony in this. He almost looks like he has a blanket thrown over him. But all of that green in there, and then the brown in his body and the brown in the background really works well. It's not monochromatic, but good color harmony overall. All right, let me get back and into Bridge. And this is your other. So I'm seeing a theme with all of you guys with some backlit images here. So the sun kind of coming through this vegetation, which is creating some flare, which, by the way, I don't mind natural flare, but my God, I hate it when, you know, there was this trend and it's still out there, to automatically throw lens flare on every single picture. There's probably filters out the yin yang that'll do that, but it's just so overdone. But seeing it naturally is a completely different thing. It's supposed to be there in a case like this. So I like the viewpoint. I like the camera angle that you have here, looking up. The perspective is a little unique. A little Photoshop work that might have improved the contrast. But again, we haven't gotten to those tools yet. So for what you had, pretty cool. Is there anything about this that stands out to you that you really like?
I do like the sun shining through the flowers. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, I think that's, and again, the background being so out of focus that you really can't help, but your eye goes to the sharpest part of the image, which is not just the flowers, but the foreground part. And it looks like there's some type of insect on that one as well. I see antenna there. I'm assuming that's antenna and not a flower. It's a little too perfect to not be, but yeah. So you did a couple of things there compositionally that kind of helped us out. Which of the two do you like better?
I like the caterpillar more.
Yeah, I probably would have too. He's a pretty cool little guy. All right, going to move on here. Caleb, man, it's interesting. Two of you use this same image as your inspiration. So I have two of, this is Falling Water, obviously, in Virginia. That was one, and not sure which one was the other, but let's talk about these first. Oh, are you there, Caleb? There we go. Yep, now I got you.
Yeah, I like Falling Waters because I had, for 4 years in my high school, I had an architecture class, and this was a big part of the entire architecture class, and I've always loved it.
Yeah, and it's a iconic view of it. And then again, so we were talking earlier about using a very slow shutter speed to bring motion into water, and you can see that they've done that. Here, this is probably a couple second exposure on a tripod, which is tough to do in an area like this because usually there's wind blowing and those trees would have a lot of motion in them, so it would be tough to do. But it looks like they found a pretty calm day to do it. And then the other thing is that warmth coming from that building around all this cool background and water is pretty interesting. So that's a great shot. Definitely something that I think anybody would aspire to look at and say, oh, I wish I had done that. I love the way the water cascades down, just kind of, flows through the image and then leads you back up to that building. I've never been there, but definitely someplace I need to consider going. It's not that far. Is this your other one? The other inspiration?
Yeah.
So do you like the fish?
I did. I like the fish, and I like the guy in it is Jeremy Wade, one of my favorite fishermen. So.
Yeah, that's a prize winner there. Wow. Yeah, I'm just looking through. There's a couple of interesting things in this image, but that's a heck of a fish, man. So this is something that normally, you'd almost call more of a snapshot, like a record shot, because it's not, there's no, I think the only thing that would have made this better, you can see that they're top lit, the light's coming from above and a little bit behind, which causes, especially the two guys on the right, it causes their faces to go a little darker. So it would have been great if they'd had a little bit of light, little flash or something to pop in there to give some detail. But again, we're really nitpicking on things that don't have anything to do with the major impact of this image. So it's a pretty cool shot. Yeah, he's definitely got a prize winner there. All right, so we've got a mushroom. That's yours. Tell me about this one.
Yeah, I was in the ecology class, and I went out and I was supposed to be taking pictures of stuff. So it was a really rainy day, and I really didn't see much, but I saw this mushroom. It's called vomiting russula, and I saw it and just took a really quick picture and didn't even look at the picture when I took it. And then I ended up looking at it when I got home and really liked it.
Yeah, and so what it is, I think, that makes this work is the contrast of that mushroom standing out from the background, but yet there's detail and texture in the background. It hasn't gone black. You've gotten the exposure right. There might be a little bit of a focus issue. I think I see areas in front of the mushroom that are a little sharper than the mushroom itself, but there's enough contrast there to make that pop. And I kind of like, so at first I looked at the greenery on the right and thought, boy, if you crop that out, it would be even more dynamic, but I'm not really sure. I think I like the saturation in that green. Maybe a little cropping to move that mushroom to one of those impact points that we talked about might help it a little bit. But overall, good job of even quickly recognizing what you had in front of you, even if consciously you weren't thinking about it, because that's where I want all of you to get. I want all of you to, for this to be second nature, for you to see something and not only instinctively know it's interesting enough to photograph, but to know how to photograph it, where to put it, how to light it if necessary, how to, compose it and crop it and things like that. So yeah, you saw right off the bat, you had something here. You just, it was a diamond in the rough until you got it back and looked at it. But I do love the texture in that background. And then we've got some trees. Boy, this looks like there's a spot at Oglebay right before you go back to, I think it's a caddy camp that this reminds me of that spot. I've shot up in there a lot. I don't know if that's where this is or not, but you've got some really saturated color here between your foreground and your background, and the greens and yellows playing off each other. So pretty cool. Anything else about this really stand out to you?
This is like kind of in a valley. I'm on the left side of the valley, and across the valley is actually, if I was standing where I was took the picture of the mushroom, it'd be in this same place.
Gotcha. So there's a lot going on in that little area. This one's interesting, but I don't think it's as interesting as this one. I think this one had, because of the contrast and the texture in that background, I think this is your winner between the two, unless you disagree. You have a emotional tie to the trees. We'll use that one instead, but I think the mushroom's a little stronger. You're good with that?
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, I like that one a lot. All right, let's, we're going to try to pick it up just a little bit here. We may end up taking a little break before we get done with all of this, but let's see where we can get to. So Max, these are your images that inspire you.
Yeah.
Great images, by the way, both of them.
Yeah, this first one, I've seen a lot of pictures where there's just so many things going on in the picture that it's just like, what am I supposed to be focusing on? And I think this picture has like, it's definitely like cactus, lightning, and rainbow, because I kind of go left to right on it. So I think nothing is too like in the way. And I really liked this one. I really liked how they captured the lightning. Yeah.
So it's funny that you said you go from left to right, because in Western society, we read from left to right. So we expect to see that in our photographs as well. Down the line, when we get into composition, you're going to see that in some cases, it helps a photograph a great deal to flip it horizontally, because your leading lines may be coming from the right. And if you flip it so they come from the left, there's just something subconsciously that we like better, because that's how we read. And you're right, this kind of does the same thing. There's a lot going on here, but nothing that's overlapping or confusing, or, we have three separate elements, basically. I have a friend who shoots a ton of this out in the desert. He's actually one of two people I know that are storm chaser photographers. And one of these days, if I have a chance, I'll show you some of their images. They'll blow you away. They are so good at it. Ken probably does more of this than Ken does more of this type of thing. My other friend, Eric, probably does more actual storms. And like, if you watch the movie Twister, he's one of those guys that'll like get right at the edge of this and in harm's way to photograph these things. And he's an interesting guy anyway. His claim to fame isn't storm chasing. His claim to fame, I don't know if any of you are Springsteen fans or not, but his Bruce Springsteen's 1976 album, Born to Run, the black and white images of him and Clarence Clemons that are on the cover. It's like probably the most iconic album cover of all time. Eric shot that back when he and Springsteen were both just starting out. And he had seen him play at a couple of clubs, found out where he lived, and went and knocked on his door and said, "Hey, I'm a photographer, man. I'd like to take your picture." And so that's how that all came about. It's cool. He still has Bruce Springsteen's voicemail still on his answering machine from when he called him after he saw the pictures. But yeah, storm chasing is kind of cool, kind of dangerous. But, in a shot like this, by the way, there is, just so you know, You can get lucky on a shot like this, but there's also equipment that you can buy, triggers that automatically fire the camera when a lightning strike happens. So if you're in an area that has a lot of that, your chances of success are a lot greater. But still, this was a great job, not only for composition, but having a rainbow in there as well. So what do we have on this one?
This picture I like especially just because of how the lighting's set up. I like how the lighting is hitting like the face of the mountain, and your view automatically goes right to that like mountain face, the whole like rocky thing, and you see the house right there. But I also like how it's dark on the left, where like the lake or pond or whatever you'd call it is, and the right doesn't really capture my attention much. But I think it's cool that they had that in there as well instead of cropping it, so the house is centered still.
So yeah, a couple of things. Again, use the squint test on this. When you squint at it, your eye has to go right to that center area because of the light on the mountain, the contrast, and the house. I think I do like the rocks on the right being left in because of what it does to the composition. Notice that we have a slim line here. It's been cropped. You know, there's a lot of sky probably in the original shot above that, but it doesn't really add to the image. So anything that doesn't add, you get rid of it, and you create this unusual aspect ratio, which really helps a lot. So again, keep that in mind as you go through in taking your images, that cropping can really add a lot sometimes. But in this case, it's really more about the lighting and time of day. All right, so you've got several that you've done here. Walk me through these. This one.
All right, this image is my friend Tino, and he was like, hey man, my sister's coming out with an album. I play the drums in it. Come take some pictures of me. And so I went to his house and we couldn't find a good angle. So I pushed out his ceiling boards, got on a ladder, got up inside the ceiling, and then we ended up getting a pretty cool picture. And we tried to edit this one, which was one of the first pictures I've ever edited. So it looks kind of funny, but we liked it. So it ended up going on his sister's Spotify with the album she released. So
again, the compositional element that you use, there's two that are kind of related. One is viewpoint, the other is perspective. In this case, it's probably more viewpoint. And yeah, that adds a lot because especially working in a confined space, what are you going to do to make an image look interesting? And that was a great choice, was to get up at a high angle and a little more wide angle and looking down, because it shows a lot of stuff, but nothing that you really don't want to see.
Yeah, my favorite thing about that is the little like, not Geiger counter, but the little like light up orange counter thing over on the right. I just like how that kind of pops over on the right. See that?
Oh, yeah, I had it covered by the window of you guys, so I didn't see it right away. So yeah, that creates a little bit of balance because, you know, the image goes so dark over there that it kind of lets you know that, hey, I'm not done yet. I've got a little bit over here. So yeah, I like that. That's, and I like the way you use the desk lamp there to light him. I mean, he may have had that there already, but that off-camera lighting adds a little bit as well.
No, we had to put that light in there because it was so dark in his basement that picture would look kind of crappy without it. So
gotcha. Yeah, well, it works, and it's it creates a little bit of mood because it creates a split light so that one side of his face is pretty heavily in shadow, but as long as we have that light in one eye, it works pretty well. The height, again, I'm not going to nitpick on things that would have been almost impossible to do, but no, it's up high enough. I'm looking at the shadow coming down off his nose. That light's high enough. No problem there. All right, so we have a diagonal a little bit here, but I'm guessing it's probably more about the, well, it could be the edge of the foam, maybe the indentations in the sand that grabbed you here.
I tried to focus more on the foam. I do like the indentations in the sand because like every single beach picture that's like professional, I feel like it's just like so perfect. It's just like the perfect beach. And I like how this beach has marks on it because, you know, it's a beach and there have been people on it. So, and this is actually in Greece. So
you might maybe throw a dead fish in there next time then.
Yeah, we could.
Don't want it so perfect. So where in Greece?
This is Kefala Beach, I believe, which this was when I first started taking pictures my sophomore year of high school. So these are kind of rough, but I liked them. So decided to toss them in here.
Greece is probably number one on my list of next places to visit. Santorini is probably where I want to
Definitely one of the most photogenic places in the world, for sure.
Yes, that and Bora Bora and the Maldives. Those are all places that that I almost got to. The Canary Islands 2 years ago. My girlfriend is an actress, and she auditioned for a part in Wonder Woman 84 and got down to literally just a handful of girls. And they filmed the scenes that she would have been in. She would have been one of the Amazon women on the island, and they filmed those in the Canary Islands. And so I would have gone with her if she had gotten that. But that was a big heartbreaker, especially go see that movie after it just came out and recognize which part, she would have had, and seeing who they, but it was pretty obvious why they didn't. In fact, the director, she had been called back for like 3 auditions. They kept bringing her back, and she finally auditioned for Patty Jenkins, the director. And we were out to dinner one night, and Patty called her personally. And I said, "Oh my God, the director doesn't call you to tell you no, right?" But she did. And she said, "I can't use you, unfortunately." She said, "I really want to work with you, and we will someday." But she said, "I need all these girls in the scene are going to be like 5'8" and 5'9", and she's 5'2.5".
Yeah.
So it just wasn't going to work. But that's definitely, that would have been cool. But these other places are places that we can just go and have some fun. So I'm guessing that you've got the rest of almost all of the rest.
I've got quite a few pictures of Greece.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They're mostly Greece. This was a church in Greece, and right when we were there, the flowers were blooming, and I was like, heck, I can put like a flower in the foreground and make it blurry. And I like how I have the flowers on the side, and then focus on the church, obviously, in the back, which is what you should look at right off the bat. And yeah, I thought it was a pretty cool picture. So
I think what I would have done a little differently here, or I would have attempted anyway to see, and it would have just been literally probably taking a step to your right, would have been to not have the flower intersect the church tower, but have it over in that area of blue sky, because now you've got that pink flower contrasted against the blue sky, and it doesn't intersect with the church. And literally all it would be a couple of feet to the right. Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, but I think I would have experimented at least just to see. I don't have a huge problem with it, but it does kind of block what I want to see there a little bit. And I think I'd like to see that color contrast with it in front of the sky anyway. So now we've got some diagonals coming in here again.
This is the Parthenon, and they were doing construction on it. So the scaffolding was kind of unavoidable to get in the shot when I was there, but
you did a pretty decent job of keeping it out for the most part. And that's all viewpoint. I think the color contrast is what really, that and the diagonals are what makes this work a little bit. You've got the warm colors in the columns in the front, and then the cool sky in the back. Again, there are some third-party things that you can do in Photoshop that will have really made that pop even a little bit more. But for what you had to work with, pretty good. And this is obviously the back side of it, I'm guessing.
This is actually, it was a separate
no, it's not.
building.
Yeah, I see that.
It's a complete, I don't even know what the heck this thing was, but it was right next to the Parthenon. And I was like, I thought it looked so cool with all the stones in front, how they just had those sitting there. So I was like, might as well take a picture of it. And yeah.
Yeah, I like the foreground. I like the light coming from the angle that it is. I would also say on this one, though, just that little maybe 2-degree tilt back to the right, because it looks, I mean, these buildings are leaning probably at this point, but we don't want them to lean any more than they actually are. So a couple of degrees back to the right might have helped a little bit. Now, this one's kind of different.
I don't even know why I put this in here. I really don't. Like, I think it's cool because this is in the Trans-Allegheny Insane Asylum down in downstate. And I just thought it was cool just because of the old Coke and Pepsi machines. And I wonder, like, if I was one of the patients, like, in this place, like, is this a room I'd be trapped in for a lot of hours of my day? Other than that, I shouldn't have put this in here.
You probably wouldn't have a Coke and a smile in that situation. No, actually, one of the things that's interesting about it is the color harmony between the Pepsi machine and the wall paint. That's kind of unusual, makes it stand out. And then again, the strong lighting coming from behind gives it a little more of an ethereal look. I don't have a problem with this being in there. I think it's interesting. I might have taken a little bit of the foreground and a little bit of the left out. in cropping, but other than that, and the right as well, because there's a little bit of dead space there. But what we have in the center of this image is still pretty dynamic. And then, so this is also an unusual shot.
This is also in the Trans-Allegheny Insane Asylum. And I think this one really emphasizes like the loneliness that a lot of the people in the asylum probably felt, because this wasn't even part of like the tour I went on. This was just some random room I found, and these pieces were just sitting there all lonely. And yeah, I think it really encompasses what an insane asylum was.
Well, again, I like the viewpoint, the low angle. I like the focus on the white pieces, so the black pieces go out of focus a little bit. And then we've got there's obviously a window to the right over here as well. So we're backlighting those black pieces. If that wasn't there, these pieces would have all gone completely dark. And I love the highlights that are on them. So
the lighting was pretty difficult just because of the walls, and there weren't many windows in the place. So
yeah, it's very stark, but it's appropriate for that. So of all of your images, which one do you like the best?
I originally liked the one of the church column, but after you gave the critique, which you're definitely right, that flower would have looked a lot better moved over. I don't know. Will you choose for me, please?
I would go with the drummer. I think the viewpoint on that, I think there's a lot of interesting choices that all worked on this. I would have originally said maybe I know the blankets and things are there to dull the sound. I would have said maybe the white blanket behind him wasn't the best choice. And it probably isn't. Like something dark behind him would have made him stand out more. But because he does have a white shirt on, at least it's not completely out of key. But overall, I mean, the viewpoint of this, the way it's lit, all of that, I think you handled it pretty well. So I like this one a lot.
Thank you.
So that's what we've got. All right, we're going to do one more here, and then we'll take a little break. And Meech, these are both yours. So we have two images that you found inspirational. I'm assuming they're not yours. I don't have any of yours, but that's okay. Let's just talk about these two and tell me what it is. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that we have, if there's a theme here, it's social unrest, I'm guessing. Tell me what else we have going on here.
Well, the one on the left, the black and white, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that was taken downtown Cleveland. So like that also has just a little like hometown effect on it, just because like that's where I'm from, and I really just think it's just I think this is a good image, especially how after things just started taking off across the country, like people also started saying like photographers like blur out people's faces because you're unintentionally like putting them in harm's way from like outside of what they're already doing, so like they can be found on the internet and things like that. So then like photographers did go around, like they started blurring out faces of their images. Now I just think that adds to like just like the mystique of it, and just like the overall just individualism of it, just like especially the black and white one. And then the one on the right, just I don't know, it just speaks for itself. Like it's just the colors, the moment, like
that's another color harmony image. And so I'm going to critique these photographically more than anything else. Not that there's how do I want to say it, not that the photojournalism aspect is so important, especially right now. With everything that's been going on for the last couple of years, it's the images that are being created, I think, they're going to speak volumes years from now, even more than now. But photographically speaking, so the Chicago Cubs jersey that he's got on, kind of leads you to believe, okay, this could be Chicago. But then you look at the color in the background, that blue tinted color that mirrors that. So again, the color contrast of the warm and the cool colors photographically works really well. The black and white on the left, again, you can't really control all elements in a photojournalism situation, but the fact that the stripes on that flag are so bright and they are offset by the black smoke behind, If that wasn't there, that flag would kind of get lost in the sky. So again, photographically, that's one of the things that probably makes this stand out. And even though we can't control every element in a shot like this, I'd be willing to bet that the photographer that took that moved to get to the spot where that flag was in front of that, because he recognized what was going to happen there. And it is something that it's very possible to do once you've taken a lot of pictures and you've seen a lot of mistakes. But boy, I wish I'd done this, or I should have done that better, or whatever. You do start thinking that way. And it's a very subconscious thing where he may have raised the camera, or whoever took it, and just with the camera to their eye, I've done this many times, actually just walk and move until bang, there it is. I see it, and you shoot. So it's all about timing. Sometimes it's about lighting. And in fact, the one on the right, if you notice, they even bordered this with a color that matches harmoniously with the shot, itself. So a lot of stuff going on. And I think a lot of it's intentional. And that's pretty good. That tells me that, these people knew a little bit about what they were doing. So I like to see that. All right. So we are definitely running over here. We've still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We still got a half a dozen of these to go through. Let's do a quick 10-minute break. We'll come back at 5:40. We'll get through the rest of these, and then we'll talk about something. It's not new. We did an overview last week, but we're going to start to talk a little more specifically about some technical things, and we'll do that after we finish the images. So let's stop sharing this, and we'll see you guys in about All right, they're slowly coming back in here. All right, just missing. All right, I think we're maybe missing only one, so let me look over the list here. Missing 2. All right, so we're going to get back into it because we still have a lot to cover. Let me get back to bridge. Okay, so Ross, you're up next, and we have our second falling water shot. This one is obviously not the same shot. Very big difference, not only in the water, but in the foliage. This is clearly shot in the fall. Same kind of an idea, though, as far as the long shutter speed to let that water blur. And the same look as far as the warmth coming in because of the time of day from the building. Anything else about this shot that you want to mention?
Just that I found it a little bit different than some of the other ones, based on it looks like it's in the fall, and the difference between this one and a couple of the other ones, they kind of stepped back and took a wider shot of it, and it was vertical as opposed to most of the horizontal images that I saw.
Yeah, and I think both ways worked. The fall, we have a little bit of color harmony because of the warmth inside the building and the warmth in the trees. But then on the other one, we had more contrast because of that. So neither one's wrong. This is obviously the angle of this building coming right through that opening in the trees. But yeah, pretty cool place, pretty cool shot. This one, obviously, I think we know where it is. Again, you don't see a lot of images of the American side. People tend to concentrate on the Canadian side because it's, the horseshoe just seems to be a little more interesting. But I see a couple things here I like. What do you like?
I just like the water.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the few water shots, and by that I mean Niagara Falls in general, where you don't typically see people doing long shutter speeds to blur that water out. They typically, hey, I'm going to put you out again. They typically shoot at a little bit of a faster shutter speed to kind of freeze some of that, but you still have some motion to it. It's not completely sharp. But I think what I get a kick out of is watching the people in front, like the foreground people. Last time I was up there, oh my God, it was hilarious. I have all of these shots of people. There must have been 1,000 selfie sticks over on the Canadian side with people sitting up on top of the railings and holding the selfie stick up to get the falls behind them. And by doing that, it's easy to isolate that person against the water, which is pretty far behind them. And you get a really interesting shot. So I always like looking not only at the people in front, but sometimes how poorly they're dressed. I don't know why that interests me, but it does. But yet in this case, they're there, but they are a minor element because obviously the falls are what commands attention here. So yeah, it's a pretty cool spot. So for your images, so we're concentrating a little bit on sports here. I'm going to tell you that I love both of these images, really. I think I can think of a dozen things I would say to you, hey, if you had done this or that, it would have made this and I don't mean to say better. I mean, it could have made them just absolutely look like a magazine cover. So there's a couple of things about this one that are awesome. The implication of what has happened here, the pose, that perfect swing, with the bat and then the ball out there in the distance. Was that actually a shot, or you didn't add the ball later, right? Or did you did?
Took a couple tries.
But you did get it.
Yeah, we had to do it a couple times because the ball would shoot out to the right or the left, but
well, that one's perfect. I mean, it's not only where you want it, it's as deep as you want it to be. All right, this isn't working. I'm going to try not to disconnect here. Let me just move over and get rid of him. Out you go. So as I look at this, I start playing all sorts of games in my head. Like, wow, should we crop this in tighter? Should we get rid of some of that? Maybe even go vertical. But then I think, no, part of what I think I really like about this is that expanse, the wide sky and like he's just got all this room to smack that thing out of sight. And his position, like I said, is perfect on this. So I don't know. There's, again, the sky, even though it's mostly overcast, we've got breaks in the clouds, some good color up there. There's some Photoshop things that could make this sing a little more, but for what you had and what you ended up with, I think this one's really strong. This is a really, it's all about timing sometimes, and the timing on this was perfect. So good job there. Let me look and see if your metadata recorded. Yeah, 500th of a second at f5.6. Again, exactly probably where I would have set it up manually to do that. So good job there. So initially when I saw this image, when I first glanced at it, I thought, well, I really think I like the other one better. And I still think I might, I'm not sure. But then at second glance, what I think probably is the reason you took this shot sunk in on me, and that's the reflection in the top of the club. This, not only the sky, but the shaft of the club, the golfer, all of that. To me, that's the subject right there. The rest of it, even though it takes up more surface area, that's the supporting actors on the outside. To me, the story is right there at the top of that golf club, and I think that's pretty cool. Anything else about this one that was? I like the dirty ball too.
No, that ball was in my basement, but no, this one definitely was less time consuming than the other one.
I would imagine, yeah. And I don't know, if how much you were actually concentrating on that reflection, but to me, that is definitely the shot. So for that reason, I probably would consider maybe a little crop, and probably the only thing I would crop would be off of the right side. I would just bring it in from the right a little bit. I love the fact that the club head or the shaft of the club comes down directly from the corner and creates that diagonal down. But if you take a little bit off the right, you probably put that club head and the ball at one of those 4 impact points without losing any critical detail. So it might strengthen the composition a little bit. But great job on both of them. Which one's your favorite?
Probably the swing.
Yeah, well, anything that takes that much work to get obviously is gonna be a favorite. So I agree. But overall, I do think it's a little stronger. I love the reflection in the other one, but that one's definitely pretty strong. So good job on both of those.
Thank you.
We've got Samantha Kidd next, and I can't preview the document that you sent, but I did read that over. But I'm going to have you talk about the images, basically just reiterate what was in there so that the class can hear it as well. So this is one of the inspirations. I always get at least one Starry Night. And it's obvious why. I mean, it's probably one of the more inspirational images out there, and it's got a lot going for it. But what is it about this that really you like more than anything?
I just like how it's very simple, but also there's a lot going on because of all the lines going every which way. And then at first you don't notice the village because the village isn't very detailed. It's very, it's just the village, it's not very detailed in the way that it's supposed to be looked at. So you notice that later. And I just find it crazy because all the lines, you follow all the lines and the lines go everywhere. So, yeah.
I think people that don't study painting look at a lot of paintings as overly simplistic, and they don't recognize the elements that are in place there. They don't recognize the thought process behind the artist. And this one definitely has, like you said, a lot going on, not just in the image, but I think there was a lot going on in his head. There was a lot of a statement being made here. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then all of the colors, like when you look at it, it's cold colors. It's blues and purples and the complementary of yellow. But then you also notice, if you really look at it, there's a lot of warm colors hidden inside. Like you see the reds of the, it's just simply complicated. No?
Well, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
The more you look at it, the more stuff you find.
Is this your other inspirational one?
Yeah. Well, actually, all of them are mine, and they're all inspirational-ish. Like, I like this one. I took this one on top of the Tennessee, one of the Tennessee mountains. It was near Jacksonville, so the tip. And I just loved the white. It was very cold. It was very cold, and everything was crispy with the frozenness. And then I liked how the light came in and the mountains in the background.
Yeah, you've got a lot going on here that's really good. The recession of the mountains in the background into that haze creates depth. What's that?
It was a dream.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. And then the frost and everything in the foreground that's backlit by the sun makes that stand out more. And then, of course, the light flares coming from the sun create the diagonals that we've been talking about the whole class that help, with it. Because if they're not there, if we don't see that, there's no reason to have that much sky. Like, I would say crop it down a little bit, but because they're there, they actually create a compositional element that point down to your subject. So color harmony, composition, a lot of stuff going on here that's pretty good, really. And I love the fact that this would have been an interesting landscape by itself, but putting a person in there now gives it a sense of scale. So, subconsciously we know how big everything is, and that was a good choice.
Yeah, it was fun.
Let me move up to the top here. So again, we've been talking about leading lines, and there's a big one right there, that tree trunk, actually a couple of them. We've got the diagonals on the ones on the top and on the bottom that create not only the diagonals, but a bit of a triangle, and everything kind of points into the river and into the fishermen. I will say that this is probably, again, another one that would benefit from a little cropping to just change the placement of things. But you've got everything you need there to do that. It's just a minor thing to finish that up. Were the trees a draw? Like, did you actually see what was going on there, or was it more subconscious?
Both. I mean, like how I explained in the painting, I like art, the lines and perspectives. So I was going more so for that horizon line that goes back, and then the top of the trees that are at a diagonal, but also the scaling of how small my boyfriend is in the river compared to the riverbank.
Yeah, scale again is a big thing in an image, especially an image like this, because that tree trunk in the foreground could have been really small. We wouldn't really know without that sense of scale. So like I said, just a little maybe a little cropping, maybe from the bottom, maybe from the left. I'd have to play with it to see but I definitely would not take anything from the right. I really love how all that works over there. That works out really well. And then this one, oops, sorry. Let me go back. Go ahead.
After you discussing the four corners we were talking about throughout the grids, I would agree. It would need a little bit of cropping would help.
Yeah, just get him a little closer, one of those impact points, and see. Yeah. And sometimes an image like this can work well as a slim line. I don't think this case will, because you would lose the diagonals of the upper trees and then the horizon in the background. So I wouldn't do that. But maybe, I don't know. I would go in and just play with it in some different configurations and see what you think. But I think everything is there. Now this one, this was a pretty good job to see what was going on there and to balance these two. This is, again, a compositional element is called balance. And that's what you've done here, is to balance the foreground against the background. lighting plays a part as well because it's not flat. It has some direction to it. Color harmony, again, or color contrast rather, with the cool tones in the background, the warm tones in the foreground. This is one that I definitely do think I would crop a little off the top, make it a little slimmer, because from, I don't know, like this point, maybe from here up, it's all the same. There's nothing up there that adds to the story. So I would take it off and see what happens. Sometimes it might make the bottom feel a little too heavy. And if that's the case, maybe take a little less, but I think probably a little bit off the top there works really well. You've got 3 pretty strong images here, but I think 2 of them are stronger than the third, and I think one of them is stronger than the other. I think there's a clear winner here. What do you think?
I really like the mountains with the light and the whiteness. Yeah,
that would have been my choice. I just think it has, as much as I like the top image, I think the impact.
It has more impact and more story.
Yep, absolutely. All right, that goes in, and so great job on those. All right, so our other Samantha, Sammy, is up next. And let's look at your inspirations first. So we have an illustration here.
Yeah, I really like this one. I like the art style, but the main reason I chose this is because of the saying. So memento mori means remember you must die in Latin, which a little morbid at first, but if you really think about it, it basically means every day is a gift and nothing is promised. And I've noticed when I have my camera, I tend to notice things and appreciate the little things a lot more than when I don't have my camera. So,
wow, that's a powerful statement right there. I mean, guys, think about that for a second, because I'm not even sure quite what to say about it other than the camera can be a powerful tool in a lot of ways. And that is maybe the most powerful thing that it can do, is to make you more aware of your surroundings. You whether you've started to do this yet or not, you probably will at some point, even when you don't have your camera, thinking of things in front of you as if you did. I can remember way back doing that, like seeing, sitting in a moving vehicle or any place and just noticing the lighting, even if I didn't have my camera, and thinking, wow, that would make a great shot or whatever. And then in this case, even going a little deeper than that. I think that's a great statement, what you just said, that the camera makes you more aware of that. That's pretty cool. And then this is your other. So again, if you're looking at pet imagery, there are certain things that make pet pictures stand out. This one's got a couple of them. We've got the motion of this dog sort of in flight, the expression on its face. This is one happy dog right now. Yeah, now that I read. Okay, now that I read the bottom, it's even funnier. But the owner in the background, the out of focus owner, because she's not the story, but she's definitely a supporting actress here. And not only is the dog happy in what he or she's doing, but clearly the owner is happy watching that. And that's again, it's just overall, there's a story being told here. And that's what ultimately we are as photographers. We are storytellers. So this was a great job of telling a story. So both of those inspirational things have a lot of meaning to them. I appreciate both of those. Let's go to your images. So we have a reverse of what we had in the shot with the drummer. We've got viewpoint and perspective, but from a low angle rather than a high angle. We still have a lot of diagonals coming in here. What else about this is interesting to you?
So I kind of like the tree in the background as well, but I don't know. My friend and I were just at the park and we were bored, and I just told her, she was on top and I was underneath like this little monkey bar thing. And I was like, hey, that looks kind of cool. And I just told her to strike a pose, and that's what she went with. And then I kind of also like the little boot that you can make out a little bit, like under her arm.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think I like the trees. I think I like it better with those than I would if they weren't there. And whether it was luck or not, it was a good thing that they are where they are. If that tall tree in the middle had been directly behind her, it would have looked like she was sprouting vegetation, and that's not a good thing. But they're not interfering with her in that regard, so that works out really well. Yeah, as far as viewpoint is concerned, whenever you want to take an interesting picture, and maybe it's something that's been photographed 1,000 times, think to yourself, how has it not been photographed? Or how are people not used to seeing this? That's what I love about juxtaposition and putting things together that don't belong together, because it makes people take notice. So, and I used to do this even with the most mundane things. Back when I was shooting weddings, oh boy, the chill just ran up my spine. I did a lot of weddings. I shot 35 or 40 weddings a year for probably 30 years. I don't do it anymore unless they fly me somewhere warm in the wintertime, but, or if it's really interesting, and there are a few of those once in a while. But what I would do the night before every wedding, I would start thinking about what are the most boring pictures I have to do tomorrow? Like, what are the pictures that you have to do at every wedding? And there's nothing, I would think about, okay, you got to photograph every bridesmaid coming down the aisle. What could be more boring than that? Everybody's done it. You're going to do it from pretty much the same angle. So I would start thinking, well, maybe I can light it differently. And so I would start doing all sorts of things, subtle things that would just make those shots a little more interesting and a little more different the next day. So, but with anything you do, if you have that mindset, you're going to come up with things that, even if they're relatively normal things, people are going to take notice. And then we have, what are we looking at? I see the bridge. I see the people on the bridge. Where is this, by the way?
This is in Hocking Hills, Ohio.
Yeah, that's another place that I've not been that everybody tells me I have to go.
Oh, it's beautiful there. I took so many pictures, and this is just one of the ones that I really liked.
So I love the bottom half of this. I'm not as much in love with the top half. I think probably I would probably even consider cropping all of that sky out, coming down that low, like the two trees that go sort of diagonally above the people on the bridge. I would leave all of those in. But if you even just hold your hand over it and look at it, I think it makes the bottom part of that image more powerful and more striking, because there's just a lot up at the top that doesn't add to that story. And it draws our eye because it's brighter. It's the brightest spot, part of the image. I think I would enjoy it a lot more. I think you did a great job for recognizing there was something there. And for, you got it in the shot, you just got a little more. And again, that's just a matter of cropping. That's all. So everything's there. I would experiment maybe with pulling that down and see what you think.
Okay.
Between the two, what do you think? What do you like?
I think I like the picture of my friend a lot more. I don't know. Because like you said, now that I'm looking at it, I do like the bottom of the Hocking Hills picture a lot better. But I don't know. There's just something about the picture I took of my friend that I really like.
And it's usually more of an emotional thing because, you were there. You remember all the surroundings and all the trappings. And there's nothing wrong with that. But they're both pretty equal. I think if the other one was cropped, I think I would like it better. But as it sits, we'll go with this because of the perspective. So I like that. All right, Savannah's up next, and we have some interesting, I may have to open these in Photoshop because, well, the one's pretty small and I want to be able to see this. So let me get those open and see if I can increase that size. Well, if we can get this, I definitely think I've got an issue with my keyboard. Oh, just lost it. Sorry. All right, so I did it again. Now I think we have it. Well, I'm not sure. You guys seeing that small black and white? Okay, so let me see if I can. Oh, there we go. Just wanted to increase the size so that we can see a little bit better. It'll pixelate a little bit, but I wanted to be able to see what it is we're looking at here. And I don't remember. Savannah, was this yours?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
no, this is just a picture of a
I
drawing.
know. I mean, but you submitted this.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me what it is about this that's interesting to you.
Well, I just really like how all of the faces kind of morph together and you can tell exactly what's going on. And it kind of like the hair on the woman is so like nicely drawn. Like you can see like the scalp and then there's a shine like coming down as if like a light were shining on her. And then the tear from the kid's face looks like it's also falling down the face of the woman. So I just really liked how they captured like all three things in one like drawing.
Yeah, I mean, the way this was done, the way it was put together is very striking in a lot of ways. I think the emotional message here is just as powerful, but it was done in a very interesting way. I don't think I've ever seen anything done quite that way. The fact that it's done in black and white, I think even adds a little bit more to that. So yeah, pretty interesting image overall. An illustration, it would have been possible to do something like this as a photograph, but the illustration may be a little more powerful. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can pull the other image up. There we go. So this one, what was the title of this? Government Sucks, I think it said.
It wasn't the actual title. I just needed to put something as the title so I could find it easily in my files folder. And that's essentially kind of what's going on because, you know, like the hand in the water is, you know, reaching out for help. And the only things that can save it are like an absurd amount of money. And, you know, in society, like that happens a lot, unfortunately. People, you know, need help, whether it's, you know, like going to a psychologist or going to the ER, and you just want to live, but then you have to pay this huge amount of money back just trying to live your life, and just kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think if I were going to sum this up and say what statement this makes, it would, and again, it's very appropriate for what we've seen a lot in the last few years, is a lack of compassion. And I think it's a very important social comment to make. The good news is that it's not all, you know, doom and gloom. There are a lot of bright spots out there. There are a lot of people who go out of their way to make other people, to help other people. And that's, you know, as long as we have that, you're always going to have this aspect of society, but as long as you've got the other part to balance it, yeah, life is unfair. There's no doubt about that. You just hope that there's enough bright spots in there to counteract that. But this is not only an interesting statement, but it's done with a little bit of humor too. So I always appreciate humor. Keep that in mind. If you want to impress me, make me laugh, and you might go a little further down the road. Let me close this, and that'll put us back here. And then let's get back to Bridge and see your images. So we've got several.
Yeah, I really like this one because this was about like 5:30-ish in the morning, so it's a sunrise. It was whenever I first got to the hotel we were staying at, and it was just really pretty, so I wanted to like capture that. And like the blurriness of the lights down on the ground, I really like that.
So it's interesting. So basically the image is out of focus, or there's movement. I'm not sure which. Probably more of a focus thing. The railing in the foreground it's sharper. I think if it were super sharp, then the background being out of focus would make would work a little more. But there's two things that kind of bother me here. before I say it, would anybody else like to take a stab? There's two things that I think probably could have been corrected or could still be corrected pretty easily. Anybody?
Well, I don't know if you could correct this now, but is it that it's slightly tilted because of the beam on the left?
Yeah. So, and it's not just the beam on the left, it's the horizon of the water. Remember, we talked about the ocean kind of running out of the picture. That little slight tilt in that horizon line causes me to have, to like want to, I keep turning my head like that's going to help it or something. And also I think that it's probably the outer wall that you're seeing on the left there. I probably would crop that, not only, tilt it back, but I probably would crop that out entirely so that we have just that expansive view out in front of us and not something along the edge there that kind of, kind of stops our eye a little bit. I think those two things, and in this case, I actually kind of like the fact that we've got all of this sky above, even though there's nothing there. For some reason, it kind of works on this image. And even with the horizon line almost in the middle, when you crop it back a little bit, I think there's some, maybe because that background is so out of focus, I think the sky looks more in focus, and maybe that's something to anchor our vision on. I'm not sure. But just a little tilt, a little crop, and I think you improve this a lot. But again, I know when we have something, again, we have an emotional attachment to, we like it whether anybody does or not. And there's nothing wrong with that. This one, I do like a whole lot. I can see that this is not in the aspect ratio of the camera. So you've actually done a little cropping here already. Was there something that you cropped out, or were you just going for something a little more dynamic?
I actually don't remember cropping it, so I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely is not in a 2:3 aspect ratio. So there's something, I'm guessing, from the right.
Wait, was it taken on a phone?
Yeah, it was taken on Snapchat.
Oh, okay. So you it might be. All right. So that could be. Well, it works actually, having that long aspect ratio because of the height of the tree on the left and the fact that there's probably nothing off to the right that would add to this image. So let's keep it where it is. Yeah, I like the, I don't know if it's a lake in the background, but the pool, contrasting that lake. I've been to the beach many times and had access to both beach and pool. And I don't know why I choose the pool. Like, I love having my feet in the sand and I like hanging out on the beach. But if I'm going to get in the water, I tend to like a pool, I guess, better than maybe I'm just afraid of what's under the water. I don't know. But yeah, interesting. Again, foreground, middle ground, background. So you've got all three here. And then we've got, I'm guessing, sunset on this one. Utilizing the pier down there as a bit of a leading line. So your horizon line is straight here. This is one of those images that probably would be a little better to flip it horizontally so that that pier comes in from the left side of the image instead of the right. Because again, we read from left to right. It's a very simple thing, but if you have a chance to do that, I think you'll immediately see, it might be tougher for you because this shot, this spot. But for people who don't or who weren't there, it has a little more readability to have whatever lines are going to lead us into the image come from the left as opposed to the right. It's not a hard, fast rule. There are exceptions to it, but I think in this case it could possibly work. So these are your three. Which one is your favorite?
The lake shot.
The lake. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
I just wanted to say I like the color of the pot there. I think that works well with the pool.
It does.
And the sky and everything.
Yeah, it very much does. And then honestly, if you look at the flowers that are in that pot, they are the only thing. I guess the Trex decking and then the dock in the background, you could say, are in that same family, but they're really the only, if you take those out, it's a very monochromatic image. So everything about those pots in the foreground there is important. All right, Sierra, you're up next. I'm going to probably need to open this in Photoshop so that I can get it bigger. And let me share that image. All right, you guys seeing that now? It says thousands of young people risk becoming part of a lost generation. And so we've got this sort of a double exposure of a person sort of there, but not really there. Tell me about this one, Sierra.
Well, this is actually like a body paint blend. So she's supposed to be blended into the background.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was painted by Emma Kamek. She's a famous body painter from the UK. And it's for the Princess Trust, a charity over in the UK that helps younger people get jobs. It's to help with the unemployment rates. And I like that she's supposed to be the focal point of it, but she's also blended into the background.
So knowing that this is body paint, wow, this takes on a whole other look at how good this was done. Even the vantage point, look at the building that intersects her face and how perfectly that lines up. I mean, I've seen some amazing things done with body paint, but this one rivals any of them. That's just amazing.
She did a whole series of them, but this one was my favorite of the pictures.
That's a great, and also notice the composition, that very long slim line again, using the buildings in the background to lead you in, using the angle of the bench a little bit. A lot of good things done here. Wow, that's just amazing. I have friends who do a lot of body paint. I have, and back before that was really as big as it kind of is now. People weren't used to seeing it. I have one friend that shot a lot of nude and boudoir stuff, and he had a completely naked body painted model that he walked right through the lobby of a hotel and nobody knew. So that's pretty interesting. But this, I would have definitely said this was a double exposure of some sort. I mean, even the leaves on the ground and how they intersect with her lower legs. I mean, clearly this was painted on site. Just a phenomenal job. That's amazing. And then again, like you said, the message behind, pretty amazing. All right, let's get back to Bridge. We're getting really near the end here, guys. I'm not going to open this one in Photoshop. I like it. The title of it is Demon, and I confess I didn't see it at first glance, but then when you see the title and you look back at the image, then you do see that, that demonic head coming out of the roof of the building that's on fire. Pretty interesting. Tell me about this one.
Well, this was the house across from my friend's house. And this was one of the pictures that was taken for a news article, for the story. Yeah, and I like fire, taking pictures of fire. And I just thought that one was really cool.
Yeah, fire is always an interesting subject for sure. Again, exposure plays a big part in how that's done. In this case, using it as backlight to silhouette the foreground elements. Yeah, this is again, very striking image. One of the few images I've seen that has power lines in it that they don't really distract, because the rest of the image is so dynamic. All right, I'm going to go from the bottom up here because I'm guessing this is yours, right?
Yes, that one is mine.
So
that one was taken. It was taken at a football game, and it was just my group of friends, and he was talking to one of my other friends, and I just took a picture, and I like the candidness of it.
So it wasn't. I think what stands out to me is the really super tight crop. Again, not something that we are used to seeing. Not that we haven't seen this before, but again, typically most people that would take a snapshot like this, they're going to, back away, get the whole head or whatever. And the fact that you've gone in really tight on that, but included the whole mask of the face, it feels a little, voyeuristic almost, you know, like you're closer to this person than you really should be, you know, and that creates a feeling and a mood all in itself. So I do kind of like that. It's interesting. I think this one is overall a better image for a lot of reasons. The color contrast here, phenomenal. Like there is no way you cannot look at the subject of this image. The placement of it, again, on the intersection of one of those impact points, the fact that the background is so out of focus, the texture in the snow in the foreground, this has got a lot of stuff going for it. Is there something about the image other than it visually like this that is important?
Not really. I was just taking pictures on my porch. I think it was on Christmas while we were waiting for family to get there. Yeah. And
well, you used your time wisely. This is a really, really striking image. Again, if I'm going to make one tiny little minor criticism, can you guess?
It's like not completely straight. There's like a weird angle.
It's that vertical post in the back. And it's, again, we're talking like 1 or 2 degrees. That's it.
Yeah.
And then honestly, if you do that, then the jar could possibly be off too much in that direction. So it's not a hard, fast rule. It's something you can experiment with and play and see if you like it better. But I would give preference to the jar over the background, I think. So, you know, make sure that stays straight. Overall, just fantastic image. As much as that one's interesting, this is your prize winner for the week. I'm going to have to say.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we got one left to go through here, Zachary. So this is one of your inspirationals, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I do love stuff like this. I love any kind of compositing that, and especially something like this is very monochromatic, very ominous looking. But tell me what it is about this that really grabs you.
Well, that's a screenshot from a video game called Dark Souls 3. I really love that game. And the area right before it, it's just this super dark, gloomy crypt. Like you fight a bunch of skeletons and it kind of sucks. And then you leave and you come out and you see that. And it's like literally just gorgeous with the moon, and like there's a slight like aurora in the sky and the clouds and the snow everywhere. It's just my favorite place, like in any video game ever. I think it's beautiful.
It really is. And again, lighting plays a part here. Clearly, that moon or whatever is in the upper right is what's creating the lighting. Look again at where that bridge is coming from the left, creating a leading line right down into that town and to the subject as well. It leads right to that subject. So even though the subject is dead center in the composition, that line takes us right there. There's a lot of stuff going on here. The arch in the bridge kind of contrasts with a lot of the triangular shapes in the spires of the buildings. Anytime you build geometry into an image, you're going to win. And this one does it really well. It has a great sense of depth because of the misting of the background elements and things like that. So whoever it was that put this little piece together did a great job. I agree. I'm not so much of a doom and gloom guy, but I think I'd like to see more of that. What was the name of the game again?
Dark Souls 3.
Dark Souls 3. All right, cool.
Yeah. That picture is actually still my wallpaper on my computer. It's been my wallpaper for like 4 years.
Oh, wow. You really do like it.
Yeah.
Which was your other inspirational?
So my other inspirational was nothing else really came to mind besides that picture. So I just took a picture of that clock thing. So that's something that I actually painted just because I love clouds, which like there's another picture that has clouds in it too. I just didn't want to go and like search for a random picture that didn't really do anything for me.
No problem.
So I see that every day, and it just makes me want to go and see what's up, like how many different shapes are in the sky today, you know?
So you've got, again, great color harmony in this image, color harmony and contrast, both in the same image. You've got harmony with the clock and the vase and the flowers in the background, and then the green that's showing in the vase and the tabletop contrasts with that peach or orange color, whatever that is. So you've got a couple of things going on color-wise there that are really cool. Normally, I would say, wow, if you had just taken that notebook out or that planner or whatever it is over there. But on the other hand, you could make a case for that being part of the story. Like, all right, it's time to buckle up here. It's time to get down to brass tacks and get some work done.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very subtle thing. But anytime your mind can do that and say, well, that might be what he was thinking, it creates a story that we like to do. So, yeah, good job on that. I see one or two minor little distractions, but those are things that we'll talk about as far as how to correct down the line. Tell me about this one.
So this was actually last year, and that's actually right in front of the Union. And I just like it because if you look really closely, there's a bunch of footprints, and then right in the middle, like towards the bottom, you can see there's a barefoot.
Yeah, well, there's a whole track that goes back.
Yeah. And I just think like whoever did that was absolutely insane. But I think it just adds a lot of like, I don't know, personality to the picture.
And I don't know if you actually reduce this to black and white or if it's just very monochromatic, but that adds a little to it as well. It's almost photojournalistic. Almost, I don't know. Again, the fact that those bare feet are there, that's the story. That's the idea that you look at and you're like, you have to make it up in your head. What is going on here? So I like that. And then, so yeah, good sunset, really good foreground, good sky detail, all of the vapor trails and things that are in there, creating those triangles and diagonals coming in. Placement of the sun over near an impact point. The horizon line is maybe a little higher than I would normally see unless that sun is dead center. But I think the foreground, is so interesting that I wouldn't want to lose any of that. So not going to knock the composition on this at all. I think to me, that's the part of the image that grabs me the most is the foreground. Mm-hmm. The sun reflecting off all of that water.
Yeah, no, that's my favorite part of it too. And then also I do like all the little lines in the sky just going everywhere. There's just a lot to look at.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to include your clock shot since you did that, but which of the three here would you say is your favorite?
I don't know. I mean, I think the sunset's like prettier, but I think the snow footprint one is just like
I agree. We see a lot of sunsets, and even when they're done well, it's still a sunset. The foot shot is unique. It's interesting. It has a story. It kind of makes me want to know more, that kind of thing. All right. So what I'm doing, I'm going back here. These are the images that everybody, oh boy, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I got to get all of you on screen here. Yeah, I think I got you. So these are the best of the images that were submitted. What I'm going to do is go through each one of these very quickly, highlight it, and we're going to do a simple show of hands. You're going to vote for which image you think is the best image submitted this week. Now, you can vote for your own, but you can only vote once unless we have a tie, and then we'll go back. So we're looking for the image that you think is the most interesting, dynamic, whatever, your favorite one of all of the ones submitted here. And I'll just keep a watch on the hands as they go up. So we'll start with the ripple in the lake. And then we'll go to the jar. Okay, then the pool in the lake. Okay, caterpillar. Drum set. All right. Viewpoint shot from down below. The road less traveled. Okay. The footprints in the snow. Mushroom. Okay, the dog. The doc, sorry. Baseball player. And the icy mountain. Okay, so it was close, but those that voted for the drum set, raise your hand again. Yeah, that was our winner. There were 4 of you that voted for that. So Max, that was, so what happens is whoever wins that round, or wins the round every week, they get a point back towards their grade. So if you miss a class, miss an assignment, or blow the test or whatever, you can slowly kind of accumulate points back. But I will tell you too that sometimes there are honorable mentions. There are some images that I look at and I go, you know what, they didn't win, but they also deserve something as well. So I'm going to pull 1, 2. Oh boy, I could pull all of these. Wow. All right, I'm going to be harsh. And I'm only going to pull 3. Oh, I could easily pull 2 or 3 more. I'm going to pull the jar in the snow, the road less traveled, and Tennessee snowcap. Those 3 are also worthy of getting a point here as well. So all 4 of those win for this week. All right, so we are actually a minute or 2 over our time. And I'm not going to extend class to go into a new, let me stop sharing this. I did have a lesson prepared that we were going to go into, but what I was going to do was go over some documents that talk about some basic camera etiquette, basically how to hold a camera properly, how to, things you can do to get a sharper image. Also, they expand a little bit more on the aperture, ISO, and shutter speed and how they affect the quality of an image. I have posted those in the resources folder on Sakai. So what I'm going to have you do on as your, let's call this your assignment for the week, is to read. There are only 5 documents and they are all 1 page. They're very easy reads. They're illustrated, so it won't take you long to go over them. But I'd like you to read over those 5. And then for your photo assignment for next week, again, so I don't run too far over here, I know what I want you to do. I'm just going to post that in the assignments. It'll either be later tonight or tomorrow. I'll post it and send that out as an announcement, and you guys can take it from there. So just 2 quick things. Read the 5 documents over because we'll talk about them next week. And then keep an eye out for the photo assignment, which is going to be, it's a little tough because I know you're not all dealing with cameras that have as much control as they should. So I'm trying to come up with things early on here that everybody can do. And if you are one of those people who are looking or in the market for a camera and want to find something that is, will work for the class, but is really reasonable, drop me a text or an email, and I will actually pull up some eBay, things on eBay that I found that will work, and I'll send you those links, and you can take a look and see if any of them would work for you. Because I did find a number of them, like I said, from $50 to $100, believe it or not. They're older. They may not have all the bells and whistles, but they have everything you need for this class, and they will still take decent shots. So let me know if that's the case. We'll go from there. It does take a good while for the video of this class to render, get uploaded, and processed. So it's probably going to be at least tomorrow night before this gets posted. Not that I think this one is as important. You might want to go back and I'm not sure what you'd want to review here because we didn't cover any new material, but it will get posted tomorrow. Any questions at all from anybody before we head out? All right, cool. I will send out, like I said, a couple of announcements. Somebody's computer died. I'll send out a couple of announcements and the assignment as well. And just let me know if you have any questions. This was really good, guys. I know we spent way more time on this part than we will on any other class, but it's really important initially to get as much of this, as much, kind of point you in as many good directions as I possibly can. You really did some good stuff here. There were some things I did not expect to see out of, a class that hasn't had a lot of experience for the most part. So great job. And we will see you guys in a week. Enjoy the rest of your night. Bye-bye. I'm going to go find out what my dog's into.